Finally, deck is done. Now I don't have to worry about anything for the immediate future, just what's coming up in clan selection and whether or not I'll build a blood. And after that, I guess we just wait and see what Overdress does. I don't know what's going to happen in Overdress, but I'm pretty sure at the very least that they will continue to treat Narukami well and that it will be a viable clan whenever they finally get around to supporting them.
Damn you, Spanish Woodhouse. Damn you. Greetings, YouTube, and welcome to the Blue Corner. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on the whole Cardfight Vanguard Overdress stuff that's gone down, all the information that we have so far regarding Overdress, and I'll be giving you guys my thoughts along the way. So this will be a pretty big video, so strap yourselves in, grab a drink, and something to snack on if need be, as, yeah, we are going to be talking for a while here, much like how I did back when we went from G to V. And that's probably the best way to get into this, because much like from G to V, we're doing another reset of the game, more or less. Like, this one's more of a rotation than a full-on reboot, but the current format that we're in, for all intents and purposes, is over, and it will be moving over to its own block that people will be bitching about as the superior format over the standard and whatnot, just like how people were with Premium. And, by the way, current Premium is also going to continue as is, and from what I saw initially, we'll get into a little later, is that current Premium won't really be supported just indirectly with these new sets, and then the V Premium format, or I'm just going to refer to as V format, will get 2 sets of support of each year, and then of course you've got the new Standard coming out, which will get multiple sets of support each year, and let's see. So, even though Bushiroad's now fired their old design team, the one responsible for nearly running Vanguard into the ground and apparently Duel Masters as well, these guys were behind the Gacha range mechanic, which was apparently poorly received and did some major damage to Duel Masters. Gee, maybe bringing them on for a card game for a second time around wasn't exactly the smartest idea. Go figure. How many bad formats did we have in V? Oh, right, after Set 6 came out and Hyuga was released, that was pretty much, in my opinion, the downward slope that would lead to where we are. Axel decks that could hit like Force decks with multi-attack, shitty Protect decks. At least the last part got fixed near the end, but yeah, look at where we're at. And where was I? Oh, right, shitting on this design team. Yeah, so these guys are gone, and a new design team, a new guy is coming in as well to head the thing. He apparently has experience for Wizards of the Coast Japan and the esports side of Shadowverse, so he's got credentials. And while these guys maybe will be better at managing multiple formats, I still think managing 3 formats is going to be difficult. And truth be told, I think when it comes to at least Western events, it's going to be Standard, and it's going to be Premium that will be the ones that get the most amount of players. V Premium, V format is going to be the middle child left out of the most things. Like, people are not going to play that format very much, at least initially, as there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of resentment for V format. Like, people were quitting the game, shops were ditching the game. Like, V just has this bad rap that it's going to take more than just 2 sets a year to fix. It needs a comprehensive ban list in order to solve the issue of its obnoxiously bad power creep. And this is, like, bad. Like, I can say with full confidence, as someone who has played this game since it first started and has also played it alongside Yu-Gi-Oh! Since 2010, that the current V format is one of the most obnoxiously awful card game formats I've ever been a part of. And this is in spite of seeing things like Firewall Dragon Loop, FTK bullshit, Tier 0 Pepe, and whatnot. Like, V was bad. It had gotten really bad at the end. Like, games were ending on turn 3. And if you couldn't kill your opponent on turn 3, they were going to kill you on the clapback because of decks like Gavriel. And from what I hear, BT also does that. I have yet to actually see the LeBlanc deck play, as I more or less tuned out of current Standard format after I got my full Bronto and just moved along. Like, Gurgut's done. That's neat and all, but Gavriel is also a problem. And if you kill Gavriel, then we also have other problems. Like, in my opinion, the game has gone downhill since Set 6 came out with Hyuga, and I will die on that hill. So, with that being said, let's get into the details of what's going on. So, let's see, the new world of Overdress. So, 3,000 years after the events of the Gizeh arc that we saw in G, by the way, Lore's back, Gods are gone, and the clans have merged together to become nations because without divine protection and whatnot, bad things happened over 3,000 years. So clans are, gone. We just now have our 5, later on 6 nations, which are Cater Sanctuary, Dragon Empire, Dark States, Stoicheia, and Brant Gate. So notably, Stoicheia is the fusion of Zoo and the Blue Nation. So that will lead to some interesting card designs. And while clans technically are dead, I do believe that aesthetically speaking, they will live on in the form of archetypes in these nations. It's going to be difficult to not call them clans. Like Cater Sanctuary, the initial cards that we've seen that are in the starter deck look more like Royal Paladins. Dragon Empire looks more like Kagero, and the main character's rival looks like he's a Spikes player, but I bet you the next set of support we get for these nations will get things that look more like Narukami, Shadow Paladin, and whatnot. So yeah, that is a thing to make note of. Also, I do believe they show later on that, here we are, that the nations, as far as backwards compatibility goes towards premium format, any card released for Cater Sanctuary can be played in any United Sanctuary clan and whatnot. So this will lead to some very interesting deck building decisions when it comes to premium, because a card that is released for Cater Sanctuary that has, I don't know, Gold Paladin-like effect could be splashed into Royals, so Royals with multi-attacks or whatnot. So there's actually a meme of like a guy who posted a picture of someone going, "Finally, retire, bind, hand discard. All of them are mine," says the Kagero player, because they could release something that plays like Narukami, Nubatama, and Kagero, and all 3 of those clans get that. So Nubatama actual retire, Kagero with hand discard. That could be possible things, and I'm sure the new design team will plan that around that accordingly. Bermuda Triangle is moving into its own nation. It's not shown in this picture, but a later one will say it's called Lyrical Monastery, and it's the nation for just idols, I guess. I think Bang Dream's also going to be coming into here, maybe, who knows. I know collaboration sets like the upcoming Monster Strike and the next Token Rambu will get their own nations, so that is a thing. And let's see, I kind of skipped over what happened. So Gize disappears, Godless Era arrives, Gray loses his protection, it becomes desolate. Brant Gate prepares for Void. Cater Sanctuary is a ruled by floating island in the sky over, it's not shown here, but like less hospital lore mainland. Like I'm getting some East vibes with the whole civilization in the sky, and then like the dark civilization down below. Let's see, Magnolia and Zoo have become Stoicheia under the teachings of the Great Sage. The Dark States are founded by a hero who has ended the nation's eternal strife. This is heavily implied to be Chrono Jet. And then legendary Dragon Egg lies in the unchanging land of Dragon Empire. So because it's 3,000 years in the future, it should be very difficult for them to justify legacy retrains of things like Dragonic Overlord, Blaster Blade, and whatnot. That being said, I'm still going to say that eventually somewhere down the line, because they wanted this version of Vanguard to be sustainable for about 5, maybe even 10 years, we'll see if we get there, that we will eventually see some kind of legacy retrain of them regardless. Like, after all, Blaster Blade is the name of the sword, not the character. That's Ames. And I imagine that there will be some great descendant of Dragonic Overlord eventually appearing in the Dragon Empire, because it's Bushiroad. At the end of the day, they just can't help themselves but tap into that nostalgia. But if it's every once in a while, it's okay. It's just the 3 years of the pandering that got tiring. So the new key of the story is Chaka Ravarti, Divine Dragon. He looks kind of like a chicken, so this is the not Mega Ultra Chicken, but Super Ultra Chicken. And he is the main character's boss unit from Dragon Empire. Almost called him Dragon Sanctuary. And yeah, it's very Kagura-like. So let's see, images of these places. So Cater Sanctuary, formerly United Sanctuary. Civil wars and natural disasters have hurt it, and then you've got the island floating in the sky, and then the people who live down below it while looking up. So that's definitely not going to play into a storyline, I'm sure. Dragon Empire is the only one of the original nations that remains standing. Brant Gate is, ironically enough, named after Brant, but Brant, I don't think, actually appeared in the original timeline. He was in the manga and in the V series, but I don't think he was actually mentioned in that. The original lore was focused more on Link Joker and Deleters. Anyway, so they're ready for their fight against Void. Then you got the Dark Stage, which is a more civilized version of Dark Zone, Stoicheia. And this is apparently the Great Sage who created Stoicheia. What do we got here? So new rules. So clan marks become nation marks, V icons are now D icons, and this is our first big picture here, which tells us about the new regulations coming in after April 1st in Japan and in May for the TCG. So until now we had 2 formats, and now we'll be going to 3 formats: Standard, V Premium, and Premium. And I'm going to refer to V Premium as V just for ease of discussing. Let's see, so the Standard format will get new booster packs, several for each nation every year, along with promo cards. Oh boy! And then V will be getting extra boosters, V collections to be determined, all clans twice per year. We already know the first one will have Raging Form Dragon and Tetra Drive Dragon, so maybe, just maybe, this will finally be my chance to get Brawler Big Bang Knuckle Buster into the TCG in V format, because I want to see Brawlers, goddammit. And then Premium format is all clans, and nothing's really mentioned as far as supporting it. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't print premium collections anymore. The last one was pretty good, and between the V collections and the D sets supporting premium indirectly, there should be more than enough cards to work with. Now moving on, what do we got here? So, oh yeah, the reasoning behind this. So under the clan system, strengthening 24 clans at least once per year made it difficult to do so. Individual clans had to wait a long time between buffs. This is very true. Ask any Grand Blue player, Mega Colony player, and whatnot. Like any of the less popular clans had to wait at least 1 year for support that was power crept out within the month. Players had fewer opportunities to add cards to their deck. Under the nation system, 5 great nations in each booster, meaning every set release a clan has a chance to be buffed. Many more opportunities for people to get upgrades to their decks. I can agree with this. Like, it had become very apparent by the end of V, especially that Butcher was having trouble maintaining their supporting every clan once per year, especially given that their way of doing so meant supporting certain clans multiple times within the span of a year. As much of a stan of Naru as I am, I definitely was not expecting to get 4 waves of support in 1 year, and that was like in the medium part. Imagine being like one of the favorite clans, like the Paladins, where you got like 5 or even 6 supports in V's lifetime. It was pretty disparaging, and it also was leading to the issue of these rapid set releases. I talked about this before, how like you'd get a booster set that a card shop got, and before they can even get rid of it, a new set comes out, and the previous set is now irrelevant because of how much they were power creeping with each set. So like, it was getting to the point where like shops had to just stop carrying Vanguard because they were getting all these sets that they just could not offload. And hopefully with this, apparently set releases will be every other month, so 2-month gaps between. These will be smaller sets too, so it shouldn't be as much of a strain on card shops. Now, what are we next? Ah, yes, rarity changes. So VRs are gone, thank God. Triple Rs are back to being now the main rarity of the set. That being said, for people who want blingy cards, they're coming in with Dress Secret Rares, which look to be ASRs, and also random commons and rares in the sets will be holographic. So basically, reverse foils from Pokemon are coming into Vanguard, which is always nice. So you can play your deck at lowest rarity, or you can go to the next step and just bling your deck out with SPs, DSRs, and holo rares. And SPs are still in these sets. I believe you are guaranteed 1 SP per box, so they shouldn't be as expensive as they were before, but they'll still be on the pricey side, I think. Let's see, the ride deck. Ah, yes, so this I like. So in only D format, at the beginning of your game, you choose 4 cards and set them aside in different colored sleeves from the rest of your deck, and this is your ride deck. Your starter goes in here, as well as a grade 1, a grade 2, and a grade 3. You have to make it one of those kind. You ride your starter from that, so, okay, it's no different from just pulling your starter out from your deck and setting it down. Then, instead of conducting your normal ride, if you can't like normal ride from your hand, or if you just don't want to, you can instead discard a card and choose a card from your ride zone who's 1 grade higher than your current Vanguard and ride it instead, which will then pretty much, actually this does completely nullify the whole issue of misriding. And as someone who constantly had to G-assist for random reasons, even if I like played like 13 grade 2s and still couldn't ride one, this is great. Misriding sucked, and I am so glad that they're getting rid of it. Now that being said, this mechanic is only available for the D standard format. V and Premium can't use it, and for good reason, because could you imagine being able to just have your guaranteed grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 ride in those type of decks where you have powerful on-ride abilities and whatnot, like ride chains? Premium would actually be so stupid, and I imagine they can't possibly print ride chains into standard now. And what else? There's some other rulings about this that we'll get to in a bit. Then next up we have the over trigger. So this is probably the one that's got the most contention about it, because it is kind of bullshitty. So over triggers are a one-of trigger. You can only play one of them in your deck, and they have 100 million power. Why? I don't know, but we're just going to say fuck off numbers. So they have that kind of power, and they get extra effects depending on how you check them. Like if you drive check them, bonus effect. If you damage check them, bonus effect. For instance, I believe, what is it? If you damage check them, they're also counted as a heal. And the one we see here, which is the Cray Elemental one, we'll get to in a bit, but I do believe his effect is if you check it, in addition to giving your Vanguard fuck-off numbers, you can also give one of your rear guards fuck-off numbers. Oops. And, yeah, so obviously people aren't going to be happy when your opponent flips this on, like, a critical turn, and you go from I can live this to I die. And likewise, it's annoying if your opponent damage checks this on, like, a big combo turn, and you were able to power through maybe 1 or maybe 2 defensive triggers, but not through this. Also, these things happen to have 50,000 shield, which is actually kind of good, because I know more often than not I will draw these things than anything else. And on that note, the probability of you flipping these are pretty low. Like, I think someone mathed it out to about 5% of your games will be lost because of your opponent flipping the over trigger. So, I mean, it is bullshitty and pretty sacky, but that is Vanguard at its core, so no real surprise here. Now, the effects that these triggers will have will vary by nation. Like, each nation will get their own over trigger with some kind of effect. So I imagine the Dragon Empire one will be if you trigger it, you pop something, which would be kind of funny on defense. Like, you damage check it, your Vanguard's now giant, your opponent can't hit, and it's a Denial Griffin. It's just a possibility there. Solon Vanguard pointed out that this is pretty silly in regards to Grand Blue, because you can bring it back with the effect of your G Guardian that calls cards from drop zone to guard circle. So that's pretty cool. And Ultima with this sounds incredibly dumb, and there might possibly be some premium ban list implications in regards to that. Like, you might not be able to use over trigger with in premium format, or rather with certain ultimate strides and G guards and whatnot. So there's that. Then we have Vanguard Overdress, the new animated series. The character designs are handled by Clamp, which are known for shows such as Cardcaptor Sakura and Code Geass. In fact, I'm playing Code Geass music, or rather a Super Robot Wars rendition of Code Geass music in the background, and I assure you that if I ever do any Cardfight area videos of Overdress format, one of those videos is definitely going to have the Super Robot Wars Z rendition of Colors, because that song is a banger. Let's see. The director is Mori Ken. I believe that's the new guy, the one that's got experience working Wizards of the Coast. And the anime production itself is being handled by Kinema Citrus, who I believe are responsible for the Shield Hero anime, which was really well received. Let's see. Yeah. Rising of Shield Hero, Made in Abyss, Review Starlight, is you want to wrap it? I don't know about the last one, but I think I've heard good things about Starlight. And then, let's see, the summary of the show. The main character's name is Yu, 15 years old, has the ability to sense feelings, and he's troubled with the fact that he can't say no when people ask. Then he runs away because his sister's hobby is something, I don't know. W Slasher thinks that it's cross-dressing. We'll see how that goes. The one who saves him from all this is Megumi, who is the a girl in the blue hat, and let's see, the rest of the characters we'll know in a bit via their trial decks, start decks. I mean, I do agree with the theory that of W Slasher, where like people have like their normal everyday attires, like the other chick, the one that looks like Shirley, she's dressed as a cop in day, but at night she's much more outgoing, saying "Hey guys" in actual English. And where were we? Oh right, the summary. So blah blah blah. They go to an amusement park called Wonder Hill, where they meet up with the other guys, Megumi, Zakusa, Tomari, and members of Team Blackout. They play Vanguard at night. And then the leader of the group, Danji, who's the guy that looks like Different Fight, and the mysterious and powerful fighter, Toha. And then as the fights start, Yu, did I just call him Yu-Hu? Yu goes into a world of images. I'm hoping this doesn't imply that we're going to see more fantasy stuff, because, again, that was always the thing about Vanguard I didn't really care for, was when they started becoming Yu-Gi-Oh! At home. I hope they lean more to the whole real-world stuff that OG had, and then the first scene of Shinamark also did, and quite well, honestly. I feel when they keep the fantasy elements at a minimum, Vanguard as an anime is good, but maybe with a much more competent team behind the anime production, we'll see just better results. Like, maybe they can actually do the card game anime fantasy stuff right. You never know. Let's see, so voice actors, I don't really know many of these names. I just know that one of the characters is voiced by the same voice actors who did Blue Angel and Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns. So hopefully they'll actually do the character better here, rather than have the character job out all the time. Seriously, Blue Angel's duel record was so bad. Let's see, so Season 1 of the anime will be 12 episodes long, and it starts on April 3rd. Although we will be getting a preview of it in March with the first episode. And then Season 2 will be 13 episodes, and it airs in October 2021. So smaller seasons, but more quality, and hopefully they won't have to like adjust the writing around trying to incorporate cards from every set into each episode, and maybe just they'll sprinkle it in here and there. It'll be available via international fans on their YouTube channel, which is no surprise. Now, I imagine it'll also be available on Crunchyroll whatnot at some point. Let's see, Overdress's opening and themes by their in-house bands, whatever. Let's see, we'll be able to get Yu as Megumi as fight skins and Vanguard Zero. Okay. So these are the characters. So this is Yu, this is Danji, Suzaku, Megumi, and shit, I forgot her name already. Shirley, why not? And oh, here we go. So what else we got here? So the trial decks. So they're releasing 5 trial decks, 1 for each character, although I think these are more like start decks given how cheap they are. And so the first 3 are for the guys, which is Yu, Danji, and Toya. Toya? Yeah. And then the second half will release later on in Japan for Megumi and Tomari. We'll be getting all 5 of these at the same time, and they are said to be roughly the equivalent of $4 American. I'm sure they'll be marked up to a bit more for Canadian. And then we've got the main booster set itself. Localization Genesis of the 5 Greats, which will be released in April in Japan and May for North America. It's 120 new cards, 10 triple rares, so 2 for each clan, 15 double rares, and then 30 rares, 65 commons, 2 DSRs, 40 SPs, and 50 holos, and 1 token card. So that's a kind of a hint. Including nations will be Dragon Empire, Dark States, Brandgate, Cater, and Stoicheia, and then cards with illustrations signed by Clamp will be included. Booster packs are designed to be released to tie into the elements of the TV show. This is the future release schedule. So V Collection will be released in summer. Includes popular units from 24 clans. Again, Raging Form and Tetra Drive. Then we get just a future release schedule and other information. So yeah, this is the price of the start decks. So about $10 US, give or take, to get all 3 of them for the guys. And that's it for this page. Moving on to the next stuff. Okay, so the VR start decks. So you've got Yu Kindo, Holy Dragon, 303 yen, 15 cards including 1 foil, 50 card pre-constructed deck plus play sheet. Then you've got Danji and Toha, and then Megumi and Tomari. So yeah, they're definitely trying to go for getting people back in, and also for like the more casual crowd, or not casual, but like more budget conscious crowd with how cheap these starter decks are. The fact that you're getting 4 of each card in them makes them a really good buy. Like normally I wouldn't really pick up cards like this or this, sort of. Like it depends on what playstyles they have. It's implied that Tomari's deck is the control style deck. Place your opponents using in prison with the mini armor. Like it feels like this one's like the more control one, so maybe. I'm not sure if I'll pick up Megumi's start deck. Maybe I'll just wait for the more like Grand Blue looking like cards, because that's the thing. Like their styles are reminiscent of certain clans, but I'm sure other characters that appear in the show will also have their own takes on the nations, and they'll play more similar to certain clans. Like I'll pick up this one for sure, because any of the Dragon Empire cards could be splashable into future variations, and there might be good staples. But the fact is, you could pick up all these decks for cheap and hand them out to people to play with and say, hey, let's play some D format. And that's really cool, really. And next up, what do we got? Oh, this double clicked twice. Alright, Genesis of the 5 Gods information. So, 7 cards per pack. So, each pack contains 2 shiny cards. So, 2 foils, much like how we were getting with packs at the end. 16 packs per box for 4,800 yen plus tax. What is that again? Closer to $60 Canadian. So it'll probably be around 7 after release, after markup, probably. 16 packs per box. Isn't that the size of an extra booster right now? 92 parallel cards, 2 TSRs, 40 SP, and 50 holo. So, okay, so I imagine holo rares are going to be full art versions of commons and rares. And you got your SPs. And let's see, all new series, blah, 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 blah. Stuff we already know about. The cards that are reprints. Oh, okay, so the core set's going to have reprints of the Trickstar, which is the starter, and Nirvana. Then what's next here? So the playmat, from what you can tell, we still have fronts in here, so stand triggers are not back. Sorry, people who like stands. Oh, sure, why not? I was never really a big fan of stands. It's just I only played the ones that had really powerful effects. See Lisbeth. Let's see, 1 of 4 sleeves are randomly inserted in with each box, presumably for your ride deck. 7 different themes of the Cardfight Vanguard Overdress logo and their matching character image color from the anime series. These. Okay, so it looks like in addition to having a box topper of what looks like to be a certain type of over trigger, each box will also have a set of 4 sleeves. So that will definitely incentivize people to buy multiple boxes. And there's also pre-order bonuses, which I don't know if we'll get over in the West, but it would be this over trigger of the cast, which I imagine if it's foil will eventually become money. It's a collector's item, so why not? And then start a Vanguard Overdress, blah, 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 blah. That's Japanese-only stuff. What's next? So moving on to stuff that was revealed on the Tuesday stream. So English translations of the names. So Diabolos, Violence Bruce, who's rather Spike's brothers-like. So congratulations, Spike Brothers. You finally have your main character. Nirvana and Apex creator Bastion. That's definitely Royal Paladin inspired. It almost kind of looks like Aura Geyser Dragon by the head. There were... Oh wow, actually that horse also has like the horns. Like, is this actually Aura Geyser Dragon? Because you gotta remember, like, strides were implied to be units from the far distant future hopping over to the past. So is it quite possible that Bastion is what Aura Geyser Dragon would have turned out to be like if it never went down the path of evil? It just a thought there. Then you... Well, not that one, this one. You've got the Magnolia, and finally Seraph White. Kind of surprised that the Seraph character is in Brantgate rather than Cater Sanctuary, because that implies it would be an Angel Feather, but it's not. Moving on, so we've got Yu Yu Kondo's ace units, so Trickstar, which is in what is it? This is in the trial deck, but I think it's also, yeah, it's also in the core set, so Yu Yu Kondo, Trickstar. Okay, flashbacks here. Please don't have Reincarnation Joel. Please don't have Reincarnation Joel. And then the boss unit of Dragon Empire in the first set, which is Mecha Dragon looking thing. Takes elements of Chrono Jet and other things. Okay, why not? Moving on. We got, let's see, again, it's just what's the nations? So Token Rambu is coming back for Overdress in its own nation. It gets a trial deck and a booster deck in a booster pack. And Monster Strike, the same thing, 2 trial decks and a booster set. We also got information on the 6th nation known as Lyrical Monastery, which is the descendants of Bermuda Triangle. So we might end up just calling them LM for short. And they're very on the nose when it comes to the deck and the players that play them, because this is literally a clan that's being supported, or a nation that's being supported by the whales, who's, well, whale on the game. And well played, Bushy Road. I think I heard somewhere that they will be included in future core set releases rather than getting their own extra boosters, and they'll also be getting a actual trial deck, not a start deck, but like a full-on like $10+ trial deck that's probably going to be more powerful. Like the 5 decks that we're getting to begin with, I believe, are supposed to be like the same power level as the old start decks that we got for Gear Chronicle and Gold Paladin back in the day. Like, you remember the Gurgwit start deck? I'm talking about that kind of power. Then once again, just a recap of the future releases, and then some Q&As regarding the ride deck. So, is the ride deck allowed in V in Premium? No, but we already know why. Do we use separate sleeves for the main deck and ride deck? Yes. And there is an example that I'll show on another page after we get through this. Cards that are placed in the ride deck, what happens is they have to be placed in other decks. So, if it were to be removed from the field by an effect, like returning it to the bottom of the deck, it goes to your ride deck instead of the main deck. Otherwise, if it would go to another zone, like the bind zone, the drop zone, and whatnot, it's placed instead there. Let's see, the number of cards in your ride deck count towards the total deck? Yes, so you have your 50 cards, and 4 of them are for your ride deck, much like how you had your 50 cards and 1 starter. So this means your main deck is going to be 46 cards, including 16 of those being triggers. So technically speaking, when it comes to deck building, you're now going to be focusing on your 30 main card deck, your 16 triggers, and your 4 ride deck cards. Between the ride deck and the main deck, you still can only play up to 4 cards of the same name? Yes. Can you put only grade 2s in your ride deck? No. You can only place 1 card of each grade. Nice try. Then new Overdress rules, use different sleeves between the main and the ride deck. Quick shields are no longer used. Instead, the player going second draws a card off of their starter. The player going first doesn't by the looks of it. So this is a bit of a balancing act between going first and going second. Going first, you don't get an extra card. Going second, you do. Imagine the gifts are gone. Instead, we're getting a new mechanic. It is called, by the looks of it, Persona Ride. So more sounds like it's an incentive so that you play your main grade 3 as your one of your ride deck, but you also want to play more copies of it in your main deck because you get effects for riding over it. Seems like it'll be, my guess is, simulating the effects of Break Ride. Hopefully it's not unbalanced. Like it's, well, I mean, you're going to have to ride your grade 3 and you need to ride another copy, but like that, unless there's like a thing that says if your opponent's grade is also at something, it kind of implies that going first will be a strong advantage again. But hopefully it won't get as out of hand as it was with Gift. Cards with D icons can be played in clans that correspond to their nation in Premium. Again, that could lead to some pretty silly stuff, and that's it. So next Tuesday we'll get more info on Overdress, but I won't be covering anything about that. But this video is just me giving you guys the initial details and my thoughts. But before we get into that, there's one more thing I want to look at, and that is just a Overdress rulebook by Kuro from the Proof Discord, and it just goes over some stuff that we already know. So Overdress changes: Premium no change, Standard to V Premium, only cards of V can be used. New D Standard, cards with D Simple, deck building, rules for Standard, 50 card main deck. Of those 50 cards, 4 must be chosen, 1 for each grade. I'm assuming that for tournament play, you must stick with the same 4 cards throughout, but we must wait for information. I am curious how this acts in regards to best of 3, because in a best of 3 format, if you actually are allowed to change the cards you play between games for your ride deck, you could technically build your deck with certain card ratios that you can swap in your main and ride deck between games for matchups. Like if you're up against a deck that plays heavily into early game rushing, you could play one 10k vanilla, and then in games 2 and 3, you can put that into your ride deck instead, and just swap them out between sleeves. So I'm kind of hoping that might be the case, because that could lead to some very interesting deck building choices, because as the card pool expands, because again, they want this format to last for 5 or so years, it'll lead to some, well, teching. And that's something you really couldn't do in Vanguard back until later on into G, where Cray Elementals became more common, or like people start playing vanillas. Like, you couldn't really tech as frequently in V, except for certain decks like Grand Blue, because you could search cards. So yeah, I'm hoping for clarification on that. Cards on the right deck must be sleeved differently in the main deck, e.g. you have black sleeves, you cannot have same. Like, here's an example of the wrong way to do it and the proper way to do it. So this will be this is an excuse to bust out all your old sleeves you just hung on to, but you don't have like enough to make a full 50 card deck. Just use them for your ride deck. Ride deck is only legal in D standard. Of course, we already know about how it's not legal in premium and V premium. You can play 4 copies of a card max in between those two. Gameplay. Mulligan remains the same. Draw 5, put however many you want to the bottom of the deck, then draw. Then take the grade 0 from the right deck and set it on Vanguard Circle as your forerunner. Note, current text of FV is unclear, but from what we understand, when you ride grade 1 going first, and then if you ride grade 1 going second, you draw 1. More information is required for that. Stand and draw. Ride phase. You may choose to either ride a card with a grade equal to or plus 1 of that from your current Vanguard's grade from hand, or ride a card with a grade equal to or plus 1 of your current Vanguard's grade from the ride deck by discarding a card from your hand. Then proceed as normal. Persona Ride. Activates when you ride a grade 3 with the Persona Ride from icon from hand. More info is needed. Ride deck. When cards are originally from the ride deck are supposed to move to the main deck, they are instead sent back to the ride deck. Premium. Now this is where information will need to be cleared up over time. So you can put D Nation cards into clans there from, e.g. Dark States cards go into Dark Zone clans, Stoichia cards can go into Great Nature, Mega Colony, Neo Nectar, Grand Blue, and Aqua Force. This basically makes a premium a pseudo-extreme fight, in a sense. Very true. Currently, only Drachma is definitely able to ultimate stride off of the D Nation cards, that is, keeps the Dragon Empire nation name. Further clarification will be required about the other nations, especially Malkalanika and Zoo's merger into Stoichia. If you decide to play Standard Plus, your G-Zone cannot mix G cards from different clans in the same nation. So, what this means is that you could be playing a Standard Plus Stoichia deck, but you can't mix cards from Grand Blue, Aqua Force, Great Nature into your Stoichia Standard Plus. You'd have to be playing only one of those, I imagine. Overtriggers. Only one overtrigger per deck, counts towards a 16 trigger maximum. When the card is checked as a trigger, remove that card, draw a card, and the unit gets power up plus 100 million till end of turn. If the trigger is checked during the drive check, you also perform the effects on the trigger. If the trigger is checked during a damage check, you negate that damage. If checked during a multi-crit attack, this essentially is a free heal due to it removing itself. So yeah, it's basically a 5th heal trigger, which will definitely feel a little bit on the sacky side. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's it. Overall, I'm gonna have to say that I'm pretty okay with all this. Like, it does suck that my clan, Naros, as I know it, are pretty much gone. Like, they do exist in other formats, but the main format, they, as an individual deck, are gone. I'm sure they will return, though, as an archetype within the Dragon Empire, and I hope that they do retain their play style of binding and swinging, and we'll see how they handle that, because I do believe, and actually that's something I forgot to talk about earlier, is that I do believe that the nations will have archetypes that play and look similar to older clans, and we might also see archetypes of things that we've never seen in Vanguard before, because that was always a thing. It's like, people were always like, hey, they should make a new clan, they should make a new clan, blah blah blah. It's like, and they couldn't, because that would mean already adding more strain to the already strained clan system. Bushiroad had trouble designing support for 24 clans a year. Imagine trying to fit in even more stuff like Unionverse and whatnot. So Now that they've got this nation system, they can actually create new archetypes within the nations that they couldn't before. Like, we might actually see things like ice benders. That's something I've wanted for a long time, is something that looks like Necros from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've always found that Vanguard could probably pull off the idea of frost dragons and whatnot, but they just couldn't, because that would require making a new clan, and they just couldn't do that. So we might actually get stuff like that. We might see sky pirates in the Dragon Empire, or let's see, Cater Sanctuary's pretty technologically advanced, right? Would we see race cars? No, that would be more of a Dark States thing, but there's possibilities for all kinds of deck archetypes later on down the road. So that's something I'm excited for, and I'll also be keeping my eye on the other two formats. V, not as much, because until they fix the issues that are in the current V format, I probably wouldn't want to touch that with a 3-foot pole. In Premium, I'll keep an eye on it, but I don't imagine I'll get to play it a whole lot, just because my locals hated Premium, or rather just wasn't as fond of Premium in the first place, so I can't imagine it being as well. Maybe it'll be a little bit different because of how the new nation system interacts with that, but of course we have to wait for the apocalypse to be over with and locals to come back before going on. But all in all, I think the overall feedback to Overdress has been that of positivity. There has been some negative pushback from people, especially ones that are upset because this is another rotation, and that is justifiable. Like, once again, Bushiroad has had to resort to the reboot button in order to fix the problem of their awful card design, and they know they can't keep doing this because it just reduces confidence in their game. And they even said it as such in one of their streams, was like, we want this to be the last reboot. We don't want to do this again, because they know it's not good for business, and people will be watching them very closely to see if they're able to avoid repeating their mistakes. Hopefully this new design team is able to do that, but at the end of the day, this is Bushiroad, and much like the WWE, they just can't help themselves but fuck things up, especially when they've got good stuff going. So I will be watching stuff with excitement, but also with a bit of skepticism. I am looking forward to seeing the new anime. It looks really cool, and maybe it will scratch that itch that's been missing since Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns ended. I haven't actually watched Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s very much, like maybe the first episode, and I really need to give it a chance. And maybe I'll go back and watch Vanguard If, since it's technically the last series of the original series. And what else is there for me to add on? No, that's pretty much all the things I wanted to cover. Comment down below on your overall thoughts in regards to Vanguard Overdress, and what you're looking forward to, and what any criticisms that you might have, because this definitely will not be perfect. And for the first while, I think the initial format will be kind of but as time goes on and the card pool expands, it will get better, and maybe we'll see another good format like VBT 5. That was probably like peak not original, but VBT 5 was probably like the last good format of V Vanguard. There was like a brief little period during Vanity format where Vanquisher was no longer like best deck in format, but there were also just a lot of good decks alongside it. So V did have its good formats, but its bad formats just left a bad taste in my mouth. G also had some good formats too. Like, my favorite Vanguard format of all is honestly GPT 08 to GPT 10 format, like just a little bit after the release of Blademaster Koen or Soen, the set that had Ziegenberg in it. Like, that was between GPT 8, where we had Gowash, up until the set with Ziegenberg come out. That was probably like peak Vanguard G, and I'm hoping that Overdress is able to eventually reach that kind of pinnacle of Cardfight Vanguard. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, this is BlueStar899 jacking out. Actually, not quite. There's one last thing. I'm hoping at some point that someone makes a nice little meme video that takes scenes from Cardfight Vanguard Overdress and talks about soup.